Washigo or Jamaica? How does that?
It's a toss-up. I'd probably like to meet somewhere in the middle in Barrie. I think that might be a nice trip.
So you would be going south then, Jim. Come on.
Well, that'd be south of Washigo.
My dad had a hired man one time and he said, I'm going to go way down south. And Dad said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to Toronto.
Go all the way down there.
Way
Morning,
down.
Ron.
Good morning.
All right, I'm going to start the stream here, everyone. Since we're just about to
article
start.
that really matters with the VAX bus coming to West Shore. Wanda got so much publicity. Good for her.
Yeah, and they got all the morning, the whole morning's all booked because they could book them through a portal.
Yeah.
Nice.
We had VAX buses in Coldwater and Washigo. No article in it really matters. Wanda gets
Cumberland Beach gets the news.
Gets the news.
John is still here, but his video is off. So.
Oh, okay.
John's been gone for years.
Ready when you are, Your Worship.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll have a moment of reflection, please. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest. None, no public meetings, no presentations, consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull anything?
No.
Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. In light of some correspondence that we've received in the last couple of days that staff really haven't had a chance to review yet, we're requesting that motion CSC 2001-192 from the Corporate Services Committee minutes, item H 2.1 and bylaw 2021-89 be deferred to the January Corporate Services Committee meeting. And then staff will bring some information back and we'll put everything back on the agenda for council's consideration.
Thank you. Any comments, council? Councillor Bettesworth.
Thank you, through the mayor. Madam Clerk, what it was, just remind me again, because I didn't pull it up here. H 2.1, what was that?
That has to do with the kennel restrictions.
Oh, right. Okay.
And the bylaw is the related bylaw that would be tied to the report.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further? Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just on the same topic, the letter we got the other day from the kennel owner, will that be part of the discussion in January as well?
Yes, it will be.
It got sent to everybody, so I hope it's on the agenda too.
Yes, so staff will be reviewing that letter, which we honestly haven't had time to really look at too much with the township solicitor, and we'll get back to council in January.
Thank you. Any further comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
I do. So the motion reads that the regular agenda be adopted with the exception of agenda items number F1.3 motion CSC 2021-192, item H 2.1 and bylaw 2021-89, which are to be deferred to the January 26, 2022 Corporate Services Committee meeting.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Bettesworth, second by Councillor Stevens. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Okay.
Correspondence, reports from officials, adoption of regular meeting. I guess we'll move on to reports from officials. H 1.1, planning report number P21, rezoning amendment application Z2012 Walker 15 Michael Land Drive. Miss Mandy, good morning.
Good morning, Council. I can provide a little bit of context for this report if you'd like. So Council likely remembers we had an official plan amendment application and zoning bylaw amendment application for 15 Michael Drive. So that's within our settlement area of Coldwater, actually directly adjacent to the Coldwater Community Center and Arena. So essentially the official plan amendment was endorsed by Council, and therefore it was sent to the County of Simcoe for adoption. So it has now been adopted by the County of Simcoe. The County of Simcoe, of course, is our approval authority for official plan amendments. So that has now occurred. So now it comes back to council for council to pass the zoning bylaw amendment. So typically in that situation, we would just put the zoning bylaw amendment on the agenda under the general bylaws. Council would hopefully pass it. All would kind of be said and done. They'd move on to their next stage, which is a site plan agreement. However, in this situation, during the consultation over the official plan amendment and the zoning bylaw amendment, we did discover that something was kind of left out of their original application. So I will just share my screen here. This is the last, or page 7 of the 10-page report that's included within your agenda package. So this is the general site plan essentially that you can see here on my screen. So this is the same site plan or concept plan that was in front of council previously. The only things we've done is add some labeling, I guess you would say, to this. So essentially this green kind of line was down the property line, just like this green line was down this property line. But what we had failed to realize is the width of this green line here is 0.61 meters. And the township zoning bylaw actually establishes a vegetative buffer that's required along this property line. So that is now included within the zoning bylaw amendment. The draft bylaws attached to this report, and also later on the bylaw section of the agenda. The Planning Act does allow us to make minor changes or additions to the application since the public meeting, and council is ultimately allowed to make the determination whether further public notice in the form of a public meeting is required or not. So staff is requesting council to say that no public notice, meaning a public meeting, is required. Notice of the passing, should council pass the zoning bylaw amendment, would still be given in accordance with the Planning Act. We just don't think it's worth it to go to a public meeting just to discuss this vegetative buffer strip here. You will notice if you look at the air imagery, how can I do that here? Go. If you look at the air imagery of the property, there currently is no vegetative buffer on the bowling center or the bowling alleys property. It is a requirement for larger, commercial or large residential properties to have that vegetative buffer. However, of course, older development doesn't necessarily have the same standards that we require today. So there was no correspondence, no input at the public meeting from the adjacent landowners. We do believe that the situation would essentially be similar to today or even an improvement over today. So staff are not recommending the further notice. We would recommend that council proceed with the zoning bylaw amendment. I think that's all I'll say, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, Katie, what could be put in 0.61 meters? Like what goes in there is like a hedge, or that's not very, like, will anything go in there?
So through the mayor, if I could, to Councillor Taylor, essentially it can just be grass. It doesn't have to be like trees or a hedge. It could be a hedge if they want it, but more likely it will just be grass. They have also proposed a fence. So, I mean, you're not really going to see this vegetative buffer because there'll be a fence. So it's just something that's required in the bylaw. If you didn't have a fence, obviously you wouldn't want just parking lot kind of carrying over to parking lot with no regard for where that lot line is, right? You want some kind of delineation along that lot line, and that's really what the buffer is kind of intended for.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Dunlop.
But through the mayor to Katie. So if we're expecting them to have green space, which you've just said is going to be a strip of grass, is there any way that we can get the bowling alley to agree to, or are they grandfathered in? Could they do theirs and then it would make a better buffer between the two of them?
Ms. Mandeville.
So through the mayor to Deputy Mayor Dunlop, if or when the bowling center comes forward for any kind of redevelopment, say if they wanted to build an addition or if they wanted to tear that down and someone else wanted to build something else, for example, then absolutely they would be required that buffer. But in the interim, they really are grandfathered. So there's nothing really that we can do in the interim. But I think we've really seen Coldwater kind of regenerating over the last few years. So, I mean, if I were a betting person, I would say it's only a matter of time before something does happen on that property. And then we would be looking for that buffer on the other side as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further comments? Thank you. Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
I do, Your Worship. So the motion reads that planning report number P21-052 dated December 15th, 2021 with respect to zoning bylaw amendment application Z20-12 for 15 Michael Drive be received. And further that pursuant to section 34(17) of the Planning Act, no further public notice, public meeting be required with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw amendment, and further that staff be directed to present a draft zoning bylaw amendment for council's consideration included within the general bylaw section of the agenda.
Thank you. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Cox, second by Councillor Bettesworth. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Madam Clerk, we're going to receive 2.1 for information, or just?
It's just been deferred to January committee.
Thank you. Moving on to new business, 1.1 correspondence from the Minister of Infrastructure, Broadband Internet Services. I think we're going to receive this for information until new news comes out in the new year, I think. Any comments? Deputy Mayor Dunlop.
Yeah, through the mayor and to council, it's I was given an unreasonable amount of time to get back from minister, like 4 business days. Minister Dunlop, I contacted her right after this meeting. She contacted Minister Surma, who called me. She was on her way to Ottawa at 4 in the morning, said that she contacted me the night before, said she would work on it. And by Friday, we had this letter with, she said it was going to be high level. There was nothing more she could talk about. And just to let council and staff know, I got my hands slapped by both of those ministers. Why, when there was an announcement made on July the 29th and again in November, did the Township of Severn not apply for any of this? They said, both of them had said, when an announcement comes out, you've got to get on top of this. You can't leave it like this. So we'll see in the coming weeks what's going to happen here, and they could tell me no more than what's in this letter as of today.
Thank you. Councillor Cox.
Yeah, through the chair. I understand that, but I think at the time we were still counting on SWIFT, and we still are. So I don't think a lot of our neighboring municipalities obviously applied because they probably are in the same boat we are. But I was just wondering if that what was it called, Clear Cable, or through the chair to the CAO?
Clear Cable.
Clear Cable, is that the name of the company that you had mentioned? I was wondering maybe if in the new year they could come and give us a presentation and just give us some idea of what they do, or is there anything we could find out from them, or if they know of anything more?
Mm-hmm. Madam CAO.
Yeah, through you, Your Worship. Couple of things. We never intended to apply for any broadband grants because we're not the providers of broadband services. We supported agencies that applied. Like you'll remember, we've had different companies come forward and ask for letters of support. But the only municipalities that actually applied for physical money were big ones that are going to become internet providers. So it wasn't an oversight. It's just not the business that we're in. And certainly I did talk to Clear Cable after last month's discussion. I'm losing track of time, but they'd be happy to come and talk to council just about the landscape and how these fundings are all rolling out, because it's a hard one for us because we don't understand well enough kind of any of the sides. And they gave me a really great presentation that really helped me understand a bit better. So they would be happy to come to council, and that won't cost us any money if you want to hear from them. Maybe could I invite them in February just to give a bit of time to pass and see if there are things rolling out and see if the landscape has changed. But if council would like to hear from them, they would be happy to come and talk to you.
Supplemental? Sorry, supplemental? Yeah. I would like that. I just think it's always good to have information from everywhere, and then we know what's going on. Because I read the other day that just on December 8th, the CRTC has billions of dollars. They're putting out for municipalities or areas, or maybe Swift can apply. And that company that's working for Swift, Cogeco, they're doing a bunch of projects for them. So I mean, there's things out there, but it's just hard to find them all.
So, Adam, CAO, based on Deputy Mayor Dunlop's comments, was there did any other municipalities in our area apply for this funding that was available? Like, I'm curious now. We don't
Through
know.
Your worship, I don't know. Like, we don't have any neighbors that are broadband providers. Like, that's the funding is to provide broadband directly, and that's typically small municipalities typically aren't in those businesses. I know like someone like Innisfil, who are always very on top of everything. They're looking at taking their power company and adding an internet provider service to it. But that's the only one that I know of that might have, but I don't know.
Okay, thank you. So the funding, my understanding is the funding that was available through the province, and I may have to get clarity from our minister, but it was for internet providers, not the actual municipalities that would apply. Is that correct? Is that what I'm understanding? Madam CAO.
Municipalities could apply in some of the rounds, but they were applying to provide broadband service. So you'd have to want to be in the business of providing broadband.
Okay.
So you could do it. I don't know how many did. Probably just some of the bigger ones.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Dunlop.
Through the mayor. So what I was told is there's companies that are approved by the government to go in and do these. And it was, please don't like the townships, don't put out money. There's money there for this.
I understand that, Deputy Mayor Dunlop, but what I was saying is the two dates that you gave us that the funding was there and we didn't apply for, it was more so for someone that was in the business to lay that fiber, not for a municipality themselves, because we're not in the business of laying fiber. That's my understanding. Deputy Mayor Dunlop.
So supplemental, my understanding was we should have put in an ask so that the government knew that we were interested, and then they could in turn, a broadband provider would come along and they would say, okay, you have the right to go into Severn. They're just not putting it all out there. But I really do think we need to just hold on to our seats and find out what's coming forward in the coming weeks.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I would agree. We shouldn't spend any money, and kudos off to get a response back from a minister this quick is great. But as we all watched the meeting yesterday, and it's everyone thinks it's bad internet in rural Severn. That's true. But we have very bad internet in Port Severn, a built-up area, and very bad in Georgian Heights. So it's all over the township, and it's not just rural; it's the whole township. So keep our powder dry, and hopefully we'll get some help in the new year.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Cox.
So through the chair to the rest of council, what would be so wrong with having a company come in that's at least knowledgeable about something and can give us some information or maybe some background? We're not going to pay them. They just find out what's going on, because it's very hard to try to figure out. I spent 5 hours the other day on the internet just trying to figure out what was going on in anywhere, and it's really hard to find.
No, I think it's to our benefit. I would be happy. I hope council will support in having this company come in to just educate us as to how this should unfold. Like, I'm happy to hear it. Deputy Mayor Dunlop.
To the mayor, I'm not against anybody coming and talking to us, but I'm not in favor of spending 1 penny on it.
Thank you. Madam, any further comments? Madam Clerk, do you have a motion?
I do. The motion reads that correspondence from the Minister of Infrastructure be received for information, and that Clear Cable Networks be invited to do a presentation to the February 23rd, 2022 Corporate Services Committee meeting on a township-wide broadband analysis.
Thank you. Mover and a second. Deputy Mayor Dunlop.
I want added at no cost to the township on that, please. Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Any further comments? Mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Stevens, second by Councillor Cox. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to general bylaws, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the motion due to the deferral now reads that bylaws number 2021-86 to 2021-88 and 2021-90 through 2021-92 be and are hereby ready for a second, third time, and finally passed.
Move on a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Stevens. Oh, Madam CAO wanted to speak.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, I was waiting for Nick to pop up, and here he is. You'll remember we left the bylaw or the building bylaw with a bit of information for Nick to collect for you. So he wanted to give you an update on what he's done.
Thank you. Good morning, Nick.
Good morning. Just a little bit of commentary, if I may take at this point in time, Your Worship. In reference to the building bylaw. So the question came up through our discussion, why or what we can do in order to maybe take a better hold of lock rating and particularly using the lock rating refunds. So staff did take the opportunity to do a little bit of research on this. And we kind of scoped the county and see what is going on out there and see if anyone has a really good idea or a better way of dealing with it. We basically found that the actual deposit amount ranged from $500 to $6,000. Clearview had the $6,000 amount. And generally speaking, we found that even at every range, there still seemed to have some kind of difficulty in terms to assure the grading was adequately dealt with throughout the board, no matter what the amount was. So staff have brainstormed, and what we are proposing or what we have in the bylaw is better utilization of section 22 of the bylaw, which basically would utilize the wording and provide some expectations from the designer, as well as using checklists for them. We're basically going in there saying, this is what we expect you to do. And we're going to ask you to verify the following, as opposed to just getting a lock rating letter with just saying everything is fine, thank you very much, and move on. So I just wanted to provide that commentary to council for consideration.
Thank you, Councillor Cox.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Thank you very much, Nick.
So Nick, as part of that do we have the ability now, or do you have the ability if a neighbor is flooded to do something about it?
Your Worship, I assume you're asking as of today or as of January 1st?
No, as of January 1st, nothing in the past, but moving forward, if we have problems with neighbors, flooding neighbors, rather than putting the onus on the engineer and the fact that we can't do anything with the engineer, will we have some clout to be able to do something to help these people out that are being flooded?
Yes, we do. We definitely will come January 1st. What we can do is we basically indicate very specifically that we could utilize those funds. So if you're giving us $3,500, which we based on, so I should explain that $3,500 was kind of an amount we figured along the lines of the middle, because the range of actually doing lock rating to complete the lock rating on a lot varies. I have $5,000 might be enough. I have $3,000 that might be enough. 35 seems a fair amount in order to cover, at least get some of the work going. Maybe not complete. It's still a security deposit, but we can definitely I advise the individual that if something is not done, we will utilize those funds and deduct our time as well as any engineer's time from that amount as part of it. So come January 1st, yes, we will have a considerable amount more power and ammunition to use.
Thank you very much. Thank you for doing that. Any further comments? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Okay, so I've read the motion, but I can reread it for council. So the motion reads that bylaws number 2021-86 through 2021-88 and 2021-90 through 2021-92 be and are hereby ready for a second, third time, and finally passed.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Stevens, second by Councillor Cox. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Any announcements? Deputy Mayor Dunlop.
Through the mayor, I had the vaccine bus people contact me yesterday morning about coming back to Coldwater. Set it up with Foodland, so they're coming January the 2nd from 10 to 4. The pharmacist in Coldwater has run off his feet answering the phone, asking about where can we get vaccinated. So again, January the 2nd, Foodland in Coldwater, 10 to 4.
Any further announcements? Okay. Do we have a motion to go into closed session, Madam Clerk?
We do, your worship. So the motion reads that committee resolve in a closed session and that this meeting is hereby now closed to the public pursuant to the Municipal Act, SO 2001, Chapter 25, Section 2392, for the purposes considering litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board. And be advised it is subject to solicitor client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose.
Thank you. Mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Stevens. All in favor? That's carried.
Okay, if you'll just give me one moment here. and we will come out of closed session.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion reads that closed session adjourn at 9:36 a.m. and that the meeting is hereby reopened to the public.
Thank you. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Stevens, second by who would like to? Councillor Bettesworth. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Confirmation bylaw, Madam Clerk.
Thank you. So the motion reads that bylaw number 2021-93 be and is hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed.
Mover and seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Cox, second by Councillor McIntyre. All in favor? That is carried. Adjournment. Mover and a seconder, please. By Councillor Bettesworth, second by Councillor McIntyre. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.
Have a good day. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yep. Oh, Councillor Bettesworth.